Hey guys, Sean Oliver from Kayfabe Commentaries here. YouShoot is probably the most recognizable of all of the series that Kayfabe Commentaries produced. Um, it probably got the most play on YouTube, and it was they may have been our best sellers as well. So we decided to do when we got a prominent name, we decided to do a couple of live shoots where fans could come in person as well as wrestling media, whoever, and ask their questions, not just on video. We would take the video submissions too, but they could come and ask their questions to these people in person. So when we landed Dixie Carter, this was a big deal. Now, at the time, TNA was making a run at WWE. And Dixie was a very controversial, the perfect YouShoot guest, right? Just totally controversial. People took a lot of shots at what does she know owning a wrestling company? She was fodder for all the wrestling writers, websites, newsletters. And we got her to agree to come out. We told her this would be great to face the public and say, go ahead, ask me anything. I'll answer anything. And she did as asked. She did answer anything. She came out. I don't people's disappointment in the show. There weren't people who were disappointed in the show. Not everybody was disappointed in the show. People who were disappointed in this, I think, were upset that she didn't like break down and cry on the set. You know, she's got a pedigree as a CEO. You know, Panda Energy is her father's company, and then TNA. I mean, what is she going to do? She has to prepare answers and defend her logic and defend her decisions that she made for TNA. So I don't know what everybody's individual problem was with this. And then any criticism we got about having asked softball questions, some of these questions were brutal, and they're not our questions; they're your questions. Okay. And we included we got one guy sitting on the toilet asking questions, another guy being woken up saying he fell asleep during TNA. It was no holds barred. You guys asked and we aired it. And just because she didn't break down and cry, I think people were disappointed that she handled herself like a professional and like a tennis match was able to serve back. So that was the one thing there was one question which we did cut out of the show, and it involves personal grooming. We thought that maybe we could leave that aside and still accomplish what we wanted to with YouShoot live with Dixie Carter. So that was the only question that was edited out. The other thing about this time was I was in the elevator after the show at some point, riding up to the room or something, and Ronnie, who was the security guard for TNA and for Dixie that week, for that day, he kind of slid next to me and said, listen, they're going to talk to you about some stuff after tonight. They may want to use you. There's going to be some changes. I can't say exactly, but there's going to be some changes. I'd heard stuff like this before, always about like, I'm not going to stand there and hold a microphone and ask somebody who's going to win tonight. That's just not what I did at Kayfabe. And it would have been a misuse of me if they ever wanted to use me. I would have told them, if you're going to have me stand there and do backstage interviews, it's the stupidest thing in the world. Go get somebody who's willing to take a bump for you. My niche was very different. So I used this attention that TNA seemed to be focusing on me to put together a pitch for their company about how Kayfabe Commentaries, not just me, could help them. Because at the time they were emulating what WWE was doing on TV with the ramp and the look of the show. They were never going to get what Raw had down pat. And I thought it was a mistake to chase that. They should go in the other direction completely. So we put together a pitch deck, a slideshow, which we called Taking It to the Streets, because what I thought that company had to do was, in some of their programming, to appeal to the internet fan. And I don't mean in that fake way that corporate people do by having a website. I mean to involve them in the things that they're interested in the product, not make it about a title match and all those wonderful things that wrestling, when it was just sport or being passed off as sport, had done. I thought that using the internet wrestling fan, the smart fan, the kayfabe fan, the shoot fan, the newsletter readers, to appeal to them by just telling the truth, doing some angles based on truth. So we wanted to do a show called TNA Unchained, where it was a shoot interview. We would do a shoot with these guys about TNA and stuff. And there's no doubt that somewhere in this shoot, we weren't going to script it, but somewhere in every one of our shows, there are 10 opportunities for a worker who's so inclined, who disagrees with what the person's saying, to take issue with it. If they let us air this, they let us sell this, and stuff that was happening there could be used in angles, I thought that there would be some kind of honesty, or that the internet wrestling fan would see some kind of honesty in a feud that maybe they couldn't tell was a work or not. You know, have Kurt get up and talk about Karen Angle and Jeff, and not do it in a worky way, do it in a shoot. And if they could use anything from that, that was great. Or an existing angle, have somebody sit down and talk about it, but from the inside. Take what happens they tried stuff like this with CM Punk in WWE shortly after this. And TNA could have been the ones to do something like that, to make it more of a shoot than a work. And using a company like us and involving our audience in it, I thought would have been a better way to go than just emulating angles and stuff that WWE was doing, the way it looked. Just be completely different with it. And ultimately, they decided, I guess what they were doing was a better option. Are they on TV now? I don't even know if they're. YouShoot Live, Dixie Carter.
It's another YouShoot, this time YouShoot Live, before our minions, our thousands in attendance here to see a historic event. To my knowledge and the knowledge of anyone I've asked, the only time the owner of a major wrestling federation has said, open up your questions and ask them to me. I'll answer them all, and I'll kick you back in the balls if you deserve it. She did it, and she's here. Ladies and gentlemen, Dixie Carter. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
We had a very large and passionate outpouring, so let's jump right into some of the emailed questions. Oh, you had to start with this name. Gula Scantafoulos, I'm sorry if I got it wrong. You can shorten the name there to Gula. From Wrestling Classics asks, did you become tired of designing women jokes that ran their course a long time ago?
Well, I've obviously gotten them from for a long time, since that was my birth name. But have some interesting stories about her. Since we're short on time and long on questions tonight, I won't go into it. But it was very surreal the day she died, and I got so many texts thinking it was me, and it was as if I was living through, you know, what would have happened. Ooh.
All right. Well, even opening the newspaper and seeing your name in an obituary.
Yeah, I like being the top tweeting name.
Right.
I'd take that, but not in the sad way it was. It was a shame.
Greg Pike asks, were you a wrestling fan growing up, and if so, who were some of your favorites?
I was. I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and Saturday morning wrestling, my brother and I always watched. Big fans of the Von Erichs. And Hulk Hogan, I was a big fan when I was little.
You were a Hogan, Mark?
Yeah.
Yeah, now you get to work.
He doesn't like to hear that when I was little. I liked Hulk Hogan.
Well, who's he kidding, for God's sakes? Aaron H., before taking a leadership role in TNA, how familiar were you with the wrestling business? Were you a fan of WWE or WCW programming? If so, when?
I watched casually during that period. I was more a fan when I was younger. I booked it when I was in college some, and had fun doing that. I went to Ole Miss, so there was a big Memphis wrestling that we would go up and watch some, and book those guys, Lawler and all. It was fun, yeah.
Benjamin, what motivated you to get into the wrestling business?
Well, I had moved to Nashville, started my own company, and worked in the entertainment business representing music artists and other athletes. And had the opportunity to interview with the folks who were starting TNA Wrestling several months before it actually started. I took on a big part of the company as my project, and became more and more involved, and was named president about 6 years ago.
Aaron H., please describe your relationship with Jeff and Jerry Jarrett. When did you meet the Jarretts? How has your relationship progressed since then? What is your relationship with Jeff and Jerry now?
I met, some of you may know this story. When I lived in Dallas and I had just graduated from college, I lived in an apartment, and my next door neighbor was Jeff and Jerry Jarrett. What are the odds of that?
Huh?
There was a guy who I always saw in the parking lot with this white blonde hair, you know, and he came up to me one time and says, "Hi, my name's Jeff." I said, "I'm Dixie." And he said, "So what do you do?" And then I felt the obligatory, "So what do you do?" He told me he's a professional wrestler, and I was like, "Yeah, right," you know. And then I remember hearing David Letterman talk about him just a few months later. But it was interesting. And then the first time we met, I said, "Hey, did you ever live in Dallas?" He said, "Yeah." I go, "Las Colinas?" He said, "Yeah." I go, "Hackberry Creek Apartments?" He goes, "Oh God, what did I do?"
Wow.
So yeah, it was an interesting world. Jeff and I are very close. I don't see Jerry very often, but I do see him every once in a while.
Okay. Richard Berger from Wrestling Classics Forum. If you met someone who has never seen or heard of pro wrestling, how would you verbally describe it to them?
That's an interesting question. It's kind of like a male rope opera. You know, it's full of action, and the storylines are told both in the ring and behind the scenes. So it's told not just in talk and character development and storylines, but you know, played out through good and evil in the ring.
Very good. Matt Farmer, Wrestling Classics Forum. I guess Matt has a MBA here. What is TNA's mission statement?
Oh, God. Well, I'll tell you part of it. Part of it is to become the preeminent wrestling company in the world, and to do so with integrity and professionalism. So it goes on, but that's the...
Jason from Melbourne asks, can you explain the organizational structure of TNA, excluding the talent, departments such as finance, marketing, advertising, public relations? Is the business fragmented in such a way that you've got folks working on exclusively on marketing? And
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's divided kind of in revenue streams, quite honestly. You have live events, you have licensing, both television licensing, which would be international and domestic. Then you have just licensed properties such as toys and trading cards and lunch boxes and things such as that. We have our touring business, which we really just started 2 years ago, actually touring house shows, untelevised events. And so then we have a marketing and publicity that works across all of those, finance that works across all those departments. And then we have talent relations and creative, and then obviously television production.
All right. Let's see, Jason, what influence does Panda Energy have on the day-to-day running of TNA, and what influence does Panda Energy have on the on-screen products?
Well, what Panda does best is they're very good financial business company. They're not an entertainment company, so what they provide us is great, sound financial direction and advice. And so I think that's one reason that we've been able to, you know, really grow this company just on every dollar we made, not by having millions of dollars put into us, but just being very fiscally sound, making good business decisions, and being able to turn a profit, which we're excited that we do these days.
How many businesses can say that these days? Benjamin, you must change the business in order to create business and bring fans to your product. How you intend to change the business or reinvent wrestling for the next generation?
You know, I love this question. It's something we've been talking about a lot at the office lately. You know, everything, you know, most things in life have cycles. You know, businesses, you know, some things are up and down, and I think wrestling has always been cyclical as well. And I would say that, you know, in some ways, we kind of came in on a downward cycle of wrestling, because you had the heyday of WCW and WWF at the time. And, you know, they had at that time done some new things by pulling the curtain back and letting people see behind the scenes and more the character development scripted part of the show, and did a really great job of doing that. And I think our challenge is today, you know, after what was exciting 15 years ago, maybe a little hokey today. And so, you know, I don't know if you've been watching our product recently, but we've been really trying to institute some new things into taking that character development and the storyline part, which is critical to the success of a show like this, and trying to do something different with it, making it a little bit more real, hip, and today.
I'm thinking midgets. You can't go wrong with midgets.
There you go.
You know, you can always go back to
there's two new midget shows out there. We don't want to compete with that.
You know what? You're right. There's 2 reality shows,
That's right.
about living as a little person. I think midget's politically incorrect.
There you go.
Yeah, well.
That's true.
Dirk Wiggler, thank you.
Really?
For
You think that's a
Wrestling
real name?
Classics. I don't know if any of these people are real. If you could model TNA after any wrestling company, what would serve as the perfect model?
I don't think I would model it after any wrestling company. It's important to be your own company, but I do look to other successful business companies out there and what they do good and try to learn things from that.
So who would
Do you
be?
need to be closer to me where they can get us in here?
Oh,
Is that what they're telling us?
Since you asked. So if we're talking about a company that we would use as a model, maybe an innovator like Apple or something like that. So you would just look at the components and maybe emulate or see what works.
I think
for your
Apple's a great example.
Yeah.
I mean, wrestling's been around for centuries, yet what our biggest challenges today are keeping up with technology. Television is not the same today as it was 18 months or 2 or 3 years ago. There was no TiVo, DVR, all of these things were brand new concepts. And television, in the sense we have known it, is becoming obsolete in a lot of ways. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of years. But Apple is a really good example of somebody staying ahead of that technology and trying to, not just stay ahead of it, but
Oh, they're on to the
tone.
next thing by the time
Absolutely.
everybody else catches up. A video from The Masked Shooter.
Oh, do I want to see this?
Good Lord.
Is he sitting on a potty?
Hey, it looks like a potty.
Dixie Carter, the mass shooter here from Memphis, Tennessee. How you doing? I'm so excited you're here doing YouShoot Live. My question for you is, you don't wear TNA. How come you took TNA out of Nashville, Tennessee? I kept going to the side. I love going to the shows there. Then I kept going to the shows, but you guys didn't keep coming back. What happened? Another question I got for you, Dixie Carter. Who's your favorite wrestler? My favorite wrestler? Jerry King Lawler, Memphis, Tennessee. How come you never bring Jerry King Lawler into TNA? He'd been great in Memphis, Tennessee. He's a great wrestler in TNA. You should also bring in Tony Myers. He's a wrestler in Memphis, Tennessee. I don't like Jeff Jarrett that much. But, Dixie, sorry I couldn't be there for the YouShoot. I couldn't go up
We're
to
all
the
very
YouShoot Live, but tomorrow I'm going to hike my way up 95. And I'm going to come to Legends of the Ring Convention. I'm going to get a picture of you, Dixie. Yeah, boy, you excited? You want a picture with the man shooter? It's going to be great. I love you, baby.
That is impressive.
Yeah.
What makes wrestling fans proud.
Yeah.
I gotta
hope
go
you
back and
make
remember
it,
these
Shooter. Hope you
questions.
make it. What the hell? What
were those questions now? Why
don't they go to? Why
Nashville?
don't you work? Right. Why don't you work the city?
Nashville, we do go back there, but our play every year is a charity event that we raise money for the Boys and Girls Club of Tennessee. So we do have one play there a year, and I usually do it with, he just moved to Detroit to play for the Lions, but my good buddy Kyle Vanden Bosch and I, we had about 35 Tennessee Titans come out this past year. We raised over, I think, $110,000. We've raised $250,000 in 2 years. And so we do it for charity. Nashville was really great to us. It was a time, honestly, when we were just existing, and we were doing everything in our power to stay in business. And it was challenging times. I remember painting the bleachers on the asylum, at the asylum black, and to your fingers just cramped. And my husband painted the walls, and shopped at Target for props. And I was Jeremy Borash's first makeup person. He never heard of bronzer, and now he can't live without it. And but
That wasn't even a submitted question. We got that. Jeremy,
but
with the makeup.
Those were
Never
great
would've
times,
guessed.
and I wouldn't trade that perspective for anything, because it makes where we've come and what we do now, it makes you appreciate it so much more. And I tell our employees and I tell our talent, those who have come in and we're having success and things are bigger. It's like, you missed a special time at TNA, when we did struggle most. But we couldn't grow from there. We sustained, and we stayed on life support, long enough to keep us going, but we couldn't grow there, so we had to go elsewhere.
I think of that video we just watched with the guy on the bowl there. You ever get scared when you see what TNA fans? You're sitting, you probably have a very nice office somewhere, and you're sitting there, and you're doing your day-to-day business. You're talking about marketing, you're talking about net margins, and then here's a guy on the toilet.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. You know what? No, the fans are great, and they come in all shapes and sizes, and positions, and all of that.
Jim Siragos, how badly do you want to become the #1 company in North America?
I tell you, I'm competitive, so I mean, I definitely want to become the #1 company in North America. But at the same time, I'm also smart enough to know that I have one competitor that has a 20-year head start on me plus, and is highly ingrained into each market around the world, and I respect that tremendously. And you know, so what my goal is you know, we've gone to other parts of the world and have become competitive, and on television ratings, you know, are actually winning. And so that's a really big deal for us. I think people look at, you know, some of our recent ratings or what happened on Monday night and think, oh, you know, the company is failing, when in actuality those same shows were getting us record ratings in other parts of the world. So, you know, we are having success, and but we're not ever going to be satisfied till we really grow significantly.
So it's a global model that you're enforcing
Absolutely
here.
it is.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Another video, Bulldozer.
Dixie Carter, the Bulldozer here, representing OffTheMarkShow.com. I cannot deny you the fact that you are a very fan-friendly owner. I saw you at the Lockdown pay-per-view a few years ago in Massachusetts, going around asking the fans what they thought about TNA. Now, Dixie, what's the nicest thing a fan ever told you about TNA? And how does it feel getting lied to?
Oh.
How's it feel to get lied to?
Lied to. What's the nicest thing, and how's it feel to get lied to?
Well, you know,
what's the nicest
I don't think it's one thing. What's that? Right here. There you go. No, I don't think it's like one thing. You hear a lot of nice things, and then you hear a lot of, you know, no one really tells you nice things when they're together with you, because they don't have the guts. You know, quite honestly, it's really easy to sit behind a computer and criticize when you're looking at a small position of the information, you know, a small percentage of the facts. And I'm looking at some of the guys who probably do that, who are waving to me. Oh, that was you? On that question? Yes. Okay. So, but I think that the biggest compliment fans give me is the fact that when we do something right and they all chant TNA versus angle, or something like that, I take that as a huge compliment, because I think that's really when they're caught up in the moment and passionate about something, and they're telling you they really like it.
Are fans compelled to come up and talk to you and even make suggestions?
Oh gosh, I mean, I ask, so we met at Lockdown, I guess he's saying. We met at Lockdown, and on a given weekend like that where we have fan interaction, I'll probably meet 3,000 or 4,000 people. And I try to ask every single person, you know, what's your favorite thing? What do you like? What do you not like? And I mean, what better way to try to get information than that? Because they care enough about your product to spend money and come, so they're obviously passionate.
Moondog from the Legends of the Ring forum. Why should fans watch TNA over WWE?
Well, I think our in-ring product is superior. I would put our talent roster up against anybody. I think it's second to none. I think the passion of our staff and how hard we work is second to none, and I think that shows in the product. You know, we've made a lot of mistakes through the years. There's no question. I mean, we're a growing company, and I personally have no problem in saying that. I think, you know, to say, oh, it looks weak to say you've made mistakes, I think that's a position of strength. I wish our presidents did it more, and, you know, things such as that. But you know, we're in a really good place, and we're growing, and I think that we're hitting something consistent. We're trying some new things that I think I hope are going to transition the product to even a higher level.
Okay. Aaron H., do you watch WWE programming weekly? If so, how do you believe it compares to the TNA product? If not, how can you justify ignoring your biggest competition? Do you keep an eye on it?
I would be ignoring it if I didn't watch, right?
Yeah.
I absolutely watch, sure. I absolutely watch. And, you know, the production is just, it's a spectacle. It's wonderful. You know, I have production envy, you know, when I look at that. But I also know that I can't do those things right now, and that's not where we're at, and, you know, hope to be one day. But there are other things that we can be competitive in.
We have questions in the house, I know. Who can we do? John. John.
Hi, John.
John wearing some product, I see.
Okay.
Right.
Question.
Yes,
From
sir.
the current WWE roster, like who, talent-wise, who would you like to see come work for you? Like, who would you want, like, say, I gotta have him now. When is his contract up?
Wow.
Your phone's going to ring tomorrow, so answer carefully. And it's going to be Vince and Jerry McDevitt.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know. I feel like right now, I mean, I would have said Jeff Hardy, you know, or you know, I feel like we have so many great people right now. I mean, it's not that they don't have great wrestlers, but you know, to single one out, it's not that I'm not trying to come up with an answer for you, but I really feel like, you know, we have the ones that I would want from there, and they're not necessarily, you know, RVD I don't think was ever their biggest star there, but I think he's going to be a huge star for us, and I think that, you know, he's going to have opportunity, because I think we'll let the fans dictate, you know, just how big he's going to be, not our perception of him or others.
Thank you.
Is that all?
All right, very good. Very good. Jim Sirigos, as a professional wrestling, not sports entertainment, as a fan of professional wrestling, excuse me, not sports entertainment, how can TNA give me the most bang for my buck?
Well, I think the one thing I can say about TNA, and those of you who have been to shows, and I see a lot of familiar faces out there, is that our wrestlers always give it 100%. I don't care if you're at a house show or a pay-per-view. I remember a time when we could not be on television because we had to wait for Spike until we started in October, and we were off Fox Sports. We were just on the internet. And if you go back and watch those little internet shows we just continued to tape, they're as good as any of those weekly pay-per-views that we were doing. And the guys just don't know how to go halfway. You tell a Kurt Angle, oh, just go out there and kind of walk through the motions. There's just no way. They're all like that. He sets the example for everybody. And I think the fan experience, I mean, it's one thing just to give them a great show. It's another thing to let them know how much we appreciate them spending their hard-earned money on us. And we do.
Very good. Steve, from SI, Staten Island, I guess, from Legends of the Ring Forum, what is missing in your mind from the TNA product?
You know, I think what was missing from the TNA product for a long time was that core of 30-something superstar talent. I think we had a lot of 40-plus, you know, superstars, and then I think we had a lot of really promising 20-year-olds, but we didn't have that, you know, that sweet spot that WWE just seemed to have so many big names in that group. And, you know, in the past 12 months, I look at how far we've come. Some of those 20-year-olds have really stepped up in my mind in the last 5 or 6 months, like an AJ Styles or Samoa Joe or some of them who have really started to come into their own. But also, you know, to have a Rob Van Dam, to have a Mr. Anderson, to have a Jeff Hardy and the Pope, and, you know, the slew of other, you know, talent that we have that are there, and they're fighting champions and are really charismatic. That's something I think we've been missing that we have now.
Excellent. California Chris from the Legends of the Ring Forum. Why is there no TNA magazine? Damn it. You didn't write that. I just thought it was...
Well, I think, you know, magazines are becoming obsolete. We talked about television and things such as that, and, you know, they look great and they're slick and they're fun to have, but I just don't know if it's a good business decision, quite honestly. Internet's the way. Those of you who are in print here or who work in media know that that's a really, newspapers, magazines are really struggling right now. And so, again, I think it's trying to keep ahead of the curve and come up with, whether it be an online magazine or what we're doing online, period, and we're trying to do some different things there.
Okay. Snoochie Boochies 666 from the board at F4W Online. Sounded cute until Satan jumped into the name there. Dixie, a UK fan here. If you could have any of these people in TNA, who would you pick and why? Steve Austin, The Rock, Goldberg, Triple H, The Undertaker, or Vince McMahon?
The Rock.
Who would you like the least?
I'd take any of them. I'd like to work with all those guys, actually. So no one the least.
I don't think Vince would take orders very well.
It'd be fun to try.
It would be fun to try. Yeah.
Jason from Melbourne asks, what is TNA's relationship with other wrestling promotions, and which wrestling promotions do TNA have a working relationship with?
Well, that's one thing that I feel like we do a very, very good job of, and that's building relationships with a lot of independent organizations around the world. We work very closely with New Japan. Right now we're working with AAA, we've worked with CMLL, and we really, you know, try to keep, you know, our talent going over there and building them through their established brands and bases, and then finding other great talent out there to bring into TNA.
Very good. Carlos Hayin. TNA will be broadcast in Spain? He asks probably very much like that. TNA will be broadcast in Spain?
Yo quiero que sí, muy pronto, pero ahora yo no sé exactamente cuándo.
Okay, soon though, probably. Right?
That's what I said, I hope.
Yeah. Adam Krasnoff, as TNA's talent roster continually grows, do you ever see the company doing a brand split with 2 TV time slots? Because that works so well.
Yeah. You know, I think that we have enough to do to build one big brand, and I think the most important thing for us is to get additional programming. That's something that we need to build our brand. In places around the world where we're having so much success, we have multiple shows on. United States is the only place where we have one show.
Do they package shows?
No, we have a show called Explosion. We have an old library show where we package old footage of TNA. We have our pay-per-views over there. We have a show called Epics. We have Impact. So we have a variety of things that are driving and building the TNA fan base. We're in desperate need for that here. And we just announced our second show with Spike TV called Reaction. And it starts June, I'll get the date, like the third week in June.
What's the pitch? Give it to us. How's it different from Impact?
What it is it's going to be a deeper look behind the scenes at what's going on into a few of the storylines. It'll be more of a docudrama type of show. And it's really what we have, the genesis of Reaction is what we have taken pieces of, and you're starting to see some of that back in our backstage footage at Impact. So you'll see more of that and really get to know the characters more in depth when we have a little more time.
Benjamin asks, are you with TNA for the long haul, meaning forever?
Well, I will be here as long as they will let me. And I tell you what, I feel so blessed every day to have this job. And I'm having so much fun. It's a lot of work. There's a lot to do, but you know, we're having some really good success, and I hope to be around for a while.
Rainey? There you are. You're on, Rainey. Some makeup. Hit the stage.
Hi. What I was wondering is, will TNA ever go public?
You know, I don't know. I think that we'll continue. We're very lucky to have investors that are very smart when it comes to decisions like that, and there are some definite benefits to being a privately held company. And I think that, you know, but we're also smart enough to explore different options and know when we're going to be ready for those. But, you know, we have conversations, you know, in relation to that, and have through the, you know, past several years. So we'll see how it plays out.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Chris.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, Chris.
It kind of follows on from the last question. How much would Vince have to offer you to sell the company?
I don't know. What do you think he'd take for his?
10 cents?
You know, I mean, I think that we're just as capable of raising funds and buying them as they are, you know, trying to do the same to us. And I don't think it would benefit anybody in this room if Vince McMahon were to try to buy TNA or Ring of Honor or anybody else that is out there spreading the greatness of wrestling.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any of the workers in the back, any questions for your boss? No reprisals. You can ask anything you want in this forum.
Rob Terry, I'll tell you, one of my greatest house show moments ever was in Cardiff, Wales, when he won the Global Championship. The BBC was there. It was, hey, Angelina, it was such a great night. I've never seen that kind of emotion, and it was as real as it gets. It was great.
Ray Luca from Illinois. Dear Miss Carter, how do you deal with the stress from running a wrestling promotion?
You know what? I just handle stress well. I look back on the times when we had no money and we didn't know how we were going to get by and didn't have television partners, and you know, those were stressful days. Mm-hmm. Today is not stressful. Today is fun compared to that. So we're in a good place.
Anthony Militek says, if one day TNA would ever go under, and I'm not saying it will, would you leave the wrestling business, invest in another company, go work for someone else?
I probably would not go to work for somebody else just because I've worked for myself or run a company for so long. But I would probably invest in another company and would love to stay involved in wrestling in some capacity.
Benjamin, do you have any regrets as far as TNA is concerned thus far?
Yeah, I think, you know, I look back and I don't want to armchair quarterback myself. I have enough of those, actually millions of them. You know, yeah, I think I look back and say, you know, I wish, you know, we would have tried something different, but at the time, I didn't have the information I was dealing with, you know, to make that decision later. So the best thing I can do is try to learn from it and not repeat it and, you know, move on and do something better.
Benjamin also asks, where do you see TNA in the next year?
I think, you know, we have, you said, is this a global perspective that we take? It definitely is global because we have different goals and objectives globally versus domestically. Domestically, it's about more programming, growing Impact, getting it more established here. And internationally, it's continuing to grow, you know, the success that we're having both in the live events as well as the television ratings.
Very good. Aaron H., what is your opinion of the name of the company, TNA, Total Nonstop Action? Please explain the meaning of the phrase Total Nonstop Action. You should also share your views on the initial TNA, whether you think it's classy, memorable, appropriate moniker for a wrestling company.
Well, the meaning of the phrase Total Nonstop Action is total nonstop action. And I think that you know, I didn't name the company. I think it's been an impactful name. I think it's been a memorable name. And, you know, I think it's at times we've been inconsistent in delivering the name of our company. And it's something that we are taking a very hard look at each and every week to make sure that that is what we are delivering and how we are trying to distinguish ourselves from our competitor.
Excellent. Jason from Melbourne, once again, do you think filming Impact and pay-per-views at the Impact Zone makes the show look very generic or have a cookie-cutter image?
You know, I wish, you know, we're in the largest studio at Universal Studios, but it's still not as big as we need it to be. I would love it to be just a little bit bigger and it would, you know, come off better. But there's some definite benefits to that. I mean, we have sets that, you know, that you wouldn't get if you're just touring and you're in a regular arena and dealing with just backstage kitchens and stuff like that. And we're literally are on a studio lot. So we have the ability to tap into that. And I think in the coming months, you'll see us doing more so of that as well.
Hess. Costume change. What are you, Liza Minnelli? No. What's that for a reference?
My question is, during the construction of the lockdown steel cage, did you notice the steel bar or girder coming down, obstructing the hot camera's view?
What? Say that again now?
During the lockdown pay-per-view, the construction of the cage, did you notice the steel girder blocking the hot camera's view?
During the whole pay-per-view?
Yes.
Okay. You know, it's a very large, heavy cage. I think it's like 4,000 pounds, and I did see that. We may look at making some changes. We had cut certain areas in there. It's very difficult in a cage match because you're usually seeing through it. That's why we've tried to. We use the overhead camera, if you noticed on there, and then we cut through where you didn't actually have to see through that. But we'll take a look at that for you.
Thank you.
All right. Hess. Greg Pike. Do you think TNA should start charging for tickets in Orlando?
I've never heard
wanna
anybody. Yeah, I was about to say. You know, no.
He's loaded, Greg.
Yeah, I think that I think it's great to be able to, you know, if the fans are going to have to travel to come see us, I think they should at least be able to get in there and see it for free.
Okay. Jason also asked, why are TNA fans at the Impact Zone considered extras in the show? Do you think they should be allowed to chant or display signs within reason of their choice? Is addressing them before a show, telling them this, an insult?
First, they're not considered extras.
I was going to say, who called them? Who called
Jason from Melbourne, Australia, did. So Jason, no, they're not considered extras at all. And it's really interesting because, you know, you would think you would have a lot of the same people coming every week. And, you know, the one question I ask every single week, how many times, and you guys have been there, you know, how many times is this your first time to see TNA Impact? Where are you from? How many are you from England? How many are you from Australia, Europe, and different places like that? And I'd say probably 90% of the people every week in there are new. And so it's a really good experience.
Sam from Delaware. Hi, Dixie. I truly do not mean to come across the wrong way because I know you were trying. How can you have a successful 2-hour wrestling program that only features 20 to 30 minutes of actual wrestling? Watching 2 hours of promos leaves the viewers disappointed and cheated, not to mention reluctant to watch again. I think you just kind of mentioned that by saying that you're
but I mean,
at the program.
you know, he's looking at an hour and 20 minutes. I'm looking at 82 minutes of programming. And I think, like I said before, we've been inconsistent in how much action we've really delivered. And it's something that in this year, I think we've averaged close to 40 minutes of action out of 82 minutes a show. I think that's pretty good. I'm pretty confident that we have had more action than every other wrestling show on any given week, and I think there was a couple weeks back, we had more wrestling than all 3 shows combined of our competitors. So we're working on it. But I will say this, I mean, a lot of people like to see the action, but that our ratings don't necessarily reflect that that's people's favorite, the masses' favorite of what they like to watch. And those interview segments that a lot of the people on the internet in particular complain about are what, when I look at minute by minutes, that tells me what people are watching. And if those interview segments are way up there, then that's what I have to listen to. And so it's a delicate balance, because we have to, if we know that the wrestling does not draw the kind of ratings, and it's probably the same for our competitor as well. If it doesn't draw, so we have to really work extra hard at making sure that product is going to be something that doesn't make you want to change the channel and is telling a story through the wrestling. And so we're working on that.
Steve from Staten Island, once again, Legends of the Ring Forum. What does she feel about the pacing of the show? It seems things happen way too fast and big matches are just thrown out there.
Do you guys think sometimes the show's too fast? There's a lot of stuff on there.
Well, it's total nonstop action.
See, and then if you don't do it, you get criticized, and what are you going to do? No, but I think, again, you're dealing with 82 minutes of a show, and we have a roster full of talented people. But what we're going to come back here and talk again sometime, and people are going to complain, well, why aren't I seeing so-and-so on the show? Mm-hmm. To pace the show properly, and if you've been watching the last few weeks, you've been seeing fewer things on the show, fewer people on the show. It's not an indictment on those people, or they don't have a talent contract anymore, or it's not that TNA's not behind them. But what's happening is we're trying to slow the pace down of the show. We're trying to make it where it's more impactful where you're watching it. So it's not trying to jam so much. We only have that one show. Now with Reaction, we're going to be able to spread that out a little bit more, develop some things that we really haven't had time to do. And it's not that we don't know it's not, you know, that it's not fast-paced. But at the same time, when you've got 82 minutes and you're having to set up a pay-per-view and you want things to make sense on all levels, you know, not just throw 4 out of the 8 matches in there that are completely out of thin air. You know, it's a challenge.
Understood. Jason from Melbourne has a lot to say.
He does.
Recently, TNA has signed new talent, creating the potential for dream matches unseen before, something WWE struggles to do. Do you think it would make more sense to have first-time matches like Jeff Hardy versus AJ Styles, RVD versus Sting, and a few others with Foley, Angle, etc., to be built up on Impact and then on pay-per-view rather than given away for free on Impact?
Again, he wants to pay for this stuff.
Yeah, a lot of money out there. We're in a recession. Apparently not.
That's why
We're all
I
here.
need to go back and change some stuff. You know what? I think that the pay-per-view business, again, is another model that is on its decline. Back in 2002, the pay-per-view business was a $2.2 billion business, and it's not even a fraction of that today. And the MSOs, the Time Warners, the Comcast, the Direct TVs, I mean, these people who have always been in the pay-per-view or television business, they're now becoming, you know, cable. They're giving you your cable service, and they're giving you get your phones through us and all of this other stuff, because they're struggling on how to make money. So they have less and less time to devote to pay-per-view. And so, you know, it's important for us, if we're trying to grow a brand, to show stuff not just on pay-per-view but on television.
We're back. YouShoot Live. Very funny. I'm not kidding. I'm going to show Dixie so she can tell you. 10:30 just a minute ago. Look, Bob Ryder is now following us on Twitter.
Yay. Is this on Twitter right now?
Isn't that nice? No,
or is he
we're
following
just
you on Twitter?
The company's on Twitter. All right, Bob. Welcome aboard. How'd that happen? All right, let's turn it over to our wrestling press. All two of you.
There's a lot of us here.
Who's this guy?
I don't know. Who are
invited
you?
the Crypt Keeper? God damn it! That's Ryan Marr's line. I stole it. Remember
you're right,
Ryan?
but it's all right.
Bill Apter, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
The Venerable. I always say it that way.
Well, what is venerable
The
mean?
Venerable
No,
Bill Apter, ladies
well,
and
thank
gentlemen.
you very much. I appreciate that. Dixie Carter, first of all, congratulations on coming up to 8 years of success.
thank you, Bill.
We want to, I think on behalf of everyone here, we want to thank you for that milestone. Some of the, and I watch TNA every week, and there are parts of TNA I love, parts of TNA I go like, but I also do that with WWE.
Right.
Same thing. In a 2-hour programming cycle, there can't be 2 hours of everything is always great. My question is, and this comes to us at the website very often too, is a lot of criticism came out, of course, when Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff and the crew came in. They're saying, oh my good, this is going to be like the second coming of WCW. What are these people doing? What do you say to those people that say that?
Well, first of all, I never worked at WCW, and I cannot, honestly talk about that. But I know that from everything I understand, it has two totally different experiences. Hulk Hogan has come in not as a talent, and I know that I've had several talent who have worked for me now and in the past who have been at WCW in the past, and it was a whole different kind of locker room mentality then. A lot of stuff was going on that was not good for the health of the company, and the Hulk Hogan I have today is the hardest working guy you can imagine. He's the first one in the building. He's in agents meetings. He's in the production meeting. He's helping the wrestlers lay out their matches, teaching them how to, get in there and control the camera. And he's all about giving back. It's not about him. It's not about, him losing, him winning. He can't be any bigger star than he is. And I think this is his time to give back. And I don't think people realize that, is how much he's doing behind the scenes. I mean, to bring TNA exposure, all the media tours he's out there going on, the thousands of interviews he's probably done in the last 6 months for our company, and it's been really a great relationship.
What have you learned most about the wrestling business that 8 years ago when you stepped behind that desk that you didn't know back then?
Oh, so much. I mean, I have such respect for this sport. I have such respect for the knowledge you have of this industry, and for many of you in this room. And I mean that sincerely, and I just try to learn from as many people as I possibly can, and I surround myself with good people. I firmly believe that for me to do the best job I can, I hire as many people who are smarter than me as possible. And I think it takes a strong person to not have an ego, to surround yourself with strong-willed, very talented people, and that's the best way to learn.
Okay, one last question.
Yes, sir.
If Sean Oliver wasn't sitting there and Mr. McMahon was sitting there, and you had an opportunity to ask Mr. McMahon any question that you'd like to ask him, what would that question be?
We can do a little role playing if you want to.
Why he would call me Tawdry. No. I don't know. I mean,
what would you say to him if you...
Well, what I say to him is that I have great respect for what he's been able to accomplish. I think we're two very different people, two very different styled people, in how we work with people and the relationships we have with people and things such as that. But I have tremendous respect for the success that he's had, and that would be it.
Thank you so very much. And again, we so appreciate you taking time.
anniversary.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bill Apter, the Venerable Bill Apter.
Thanks, Bill.
I have Pro Wrestling Illustrated in the house. State your name for the court, please.
Brady Hicks, Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Woohoo!
In the last 6 months, obviously, you've added a lot of experience to the roster. Probably like 150 years, so maybe even more.
Just 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, maybe like 2 even. But speak about, you know, the value that brings to the locker room, you know, with a lot of guys who, as you mentioned, they were in their 20s and 30s and are just starting to come into their own, really, to have Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, even Rob Van Dam, you know, in the locker room with them.
Well, you know, the great thing about these guys is, again, they're not coming in for themselves. They're coming in to help make the product better. And, you know, again, Ric Flair with, you know, Beer Money and Desmond Wolfe and AJ Styles. I mean, he has literally taken AJ under his robe. And, you know, I think, you know, we could all honestly say, AJ, we've almost seen him transform himself in the last 6 months and really step out of that shell. And he's always been a phenomenal wrestler. There's never been any doubt about that. But he's really become something bigger than that, which is very important if you're ever going to succeed on a superstar level.
I agree. I guess what you'd say is like he took his game to the next level.
He did.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think that's what these guys are doing. And you know, when I have these conversations about bringing them in, it's not about Ric Flair coming in, you know, and wanting to wrestle and to dominate the show, or Hulk Hogan to do that, or any of these other, Mick Foley. I mean, they're there really to give back. And, you know, I think they're doing a really good job of that.
Was Thursday night a setback?
Going back to Thursday night? You know, it wasn't. It was one of those things since the very beginning, since long before I was president, there was always talk of everybody wanted to be on Monday nights and recreate that, you know, Monday Night Magic from so many years ago. But the fact is that television's not the same as it was that many years ago. And we knew that going in, and like I said, it's different today than it was even 2 years ago with DVR and things such as that. And you know, back then there were 40-something channels, and no one was programming to men on Monday nights except for Monday Night Football. And you know, it was really that great, perfect storm. But the times have changed, and you know, but people still wanted to give it a try. So the thought always was from the beginning, it doesn't hurt to try it. And we can always go back to where we've had success, and that's what we've done.
Sure, absolutely.
I think it would have been a bigger mistake not to make the right decision for ego purposes or something such as that.
Absolutely. One final question, and when I mentioned this to my friends and like some people who follow the magazine, you know, that I was going to have this opportunity, I asked them, you know, anybody have anything I can ask her? And the biggest question that I got was, are there any plans to bring more international stars in? Maybe have another, what did you call it? The
World
Super X Cup? World X
Cup.
Yeah.
Well, you know, first of all, let me say something about your magazine. You know, TNA doesn't need a magazine. You guys are, you know, are really doing everything in your power to do a great job, and you do represent wrestling. So thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think international stars, I think to have Rob Terry and you know, from Wales, and you know, the British Invasion, and Desmond, and you know, right now we've got some exciting things up our sleeves from Mexico, Japan. You know, we've got a couple of guys over right now from there, and it's always something we're looking towards. What I love about the different international, it just brings a different flair and style to the in-ring work, and it's interesting to see how like the Motor City Machine Guns might interact with somebody, or Beer Money, and you know, it's just, it really changes the whole vibe of the in-ring product.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dixie.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Pro Wrestling Illustrated.
Yep.
PWI to you and me.
Print media.
Print media.
There you go.
Enjoying a long, slow death.
Aren't we all?
You know, you get on the internet, though. That's, you'll find that internet soon. All right, YouShoot Live, we're back. This section is it concerns creative. We've called it the Bookerman. Jason from Melbourne, please explain how Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff fit into the organizational structure of TNA. What level of authority does each have, and who do they directly report to, or is it just an on-screen angle?
It's not an on-screen angle, and they report to me. And Terry is involved in a lot, mostly from the wrestling standpoint, and works with me with Spike Television, with media, with our licensing partners. He has just literally stepped up and done anything and everything we've needed him to do. Eric is a very bright person. I'm coming to have good respect for him, and he works, we're developing a couple of new television programs together, and you know, he's been really instrumental in the whole reaction show and the creation of that. I have to give that to him. That's been some of his brilliance.
All right. Another video.
Uh-oh.
Some guy named Jim or something.
Jimmy.
Hey, Dixie.
Hey.
Long time no see. You know, I feel like we got to put all that water under the bridge, because I'm here tonight not to rehash any old problems, but I've been appointed by the people at Kayfabe Commentaries to ask a question of you that's been asked by various people in various ways. People inside the wrestling profession and outside, whether it be fans, whether it be office staff, whether it be wrestlers, talent, rookies or veterans. Hundreds, if not thousands of people have asked some variation of this same question, Dixie, but it boils down to basically 3 modes of questioning. I will give them to you now. And remember, I've been appointed to do this.
By himself.
Yeah, we twisted your arms.
Do you employ Vince Russo? Why have you entrusted the creative direction of your company to Vince Russo for so long? And why does Vince Russo have a job in the professional wrestling industry? Hundreds, if not thousands of people inside and outside the business want to know the answer. So, personal feelings aside, Dixie, I've been appointed on their behalf to ask that question. I'd like now to give you the floor to answer it. Take as much time as you wish, give as much detail as you want. But answer the question, Dixie, like your company depends on it, because unfortunately, it does.
Thank you, Jim. So good to see you. I've missed
You've
you
heard of Jim Cornette, right?
tremendously, once or twice, yeah. Vince Russo. He is, I tell you what makes somebody successful in wrestling is that you either love them or you hate them. And I think he's that kind of polarizing character. He is not somebody who, and that's really what you want from your best talent too. You want people to love him or you want them to hate him. And he is honestly incredibly talented when it comes to writing creative. He knows what he does not do. You know, the funny thing about Vince is that, you know, you guys I'm sure have heard some of those Fire Russo chants, you know, that we've had in arenas through the years. And I can tell you in every single instance, he had nothing to do with what was going on in the ring. But there is that reputation, and I see people's faces there going, yeah, right. But you know what? You're not there. You're not sitting in creative, and you either believe me or you don't believe me. There are certain people in the rooms, and he was, you know, not running creative. But if something happened and it's a tuxedo and a such and such match, you know, it may have been Dutch Mantel's idea that, you know, he and Jim Cornette are good buddies. And you know, yet they would shout Fire Russo to the point where I had to tell the other members of creative, if there is a Fire Russo chant in my arena again, I will fire somebody else, especially if he didn't have anything to do with it. And I haven't heard one since then. I think it was literally one of those kind of checks where you had to say, you know, maybe some of the stuff we are doing is ridiculous, and maybe they got away with it a little bit because somebody else took the heat for it.
Okay, very good. Matthew, can't pronounce the last name, sorry, Matt, 411 Mania. Vince Russo is something of a polarizing figure, as we just heard. Many hate and despise him, while there are some like myself who think he is a talent and can be useful. However, it does seem safe to say that Vince Russo's greatest work was during the Attitude Era, when he had Vince McMahon as a filter. When Russo was given full control in WCW, the results were less than spectacular. Given your desire that everyone be focused and behind the direction of the company, can you justify this with Russo's track record when he's given total creative control, or is he, in fact, filtered in TNA?
He, more than anybody we've ever worked with in creative, listens to everybody else. They listen to the talent. He brings in ideas from the talent. He listens to other members on the team. And, you know, he's not about, oh, this is just my idea and this is the way it's got to be. I have worked with that kind of personality in TNA. Not a big fan of it. I'm a big fan that a good idea can come from anywhere, but you also have to not have such a big ego to think your idea is the only good idea.
John P., who was behind hiring the firm that sent the letter to Jim Cornette, you, Vince Russo, or Terry Taylor?
I have a staff of attorneys who work for us, so there was no hiring done. It was just an attorney who worked for us.
All right. Vinny Vegas from Las Vegas. Dixie, when your creative people come to you with their ideas or a proposed direction for the television product, how do you distinguish between a good idea and a bad idea?
You know, I think it's not important to me what I like or dislike. I watch the minute by minutes. Every single week we get ratings in, and we used to get ratings in quarter hours for many years, and you can make a lot of assessments there. You can almost convince yourself that something you liked that was within a quarter hour was really what was holding it up, and you could almost convince yourself something you didn't know, well, that didn't work, or that person's not any good because that quarter hour. But when you get those minute by minutes and you see what people are watching and when they're turning that dial and when they're turning it back on and who's holding it and what demos are watching what, that's hard to deny. And that's what I have to listen to. I mean, it's not a matter of what I like, and I think if I were even to ask everybody in this room, to try to come up with something that you're 100% honestly in support of, I don't think one of you, except the passion and your love for wrestling, would we be able to agree on that. And so I think the thing is there's a lot of differing ideas and opinions, but the best way to go about finding out if something you're doing is working is to look at those ratings and to get that specific feedback.
Mm-hmm. David, a familiar face?
Yes, once or twice.
Wearing some more product, more merch, cha-ching.
Yes. Dixie, of course, always a pleasure to see you. The one question I get asked from everybody, would you be open to bringing in Paul Heyman to TNA?
Absolutely. I mean, he's a great talent. I know that several people at our company talk with him. I've never talked with him personally, but he's a great talent. He'd be a good addition.
Thank you.
You bet.
Aaron H., by what standards do you judge the creative people behind TNA programming? How do you evaluate job performance among your creative department personnel, including Vince Russo? What types of goals are set for your writers, and have these goals been met, and have these goals consistently been met? If not, how do you deal with failures to meet goals?
Well, I think in addition to the ratings for specifically the television product, you have to look at how your different revenue streams are doing. And we're very blessed that in a very difficult economy, one of the worst recessions ever, we've had financial growth, and just since the beginning of this year, we've actually had significant revenue growth in every single department in our company, and that's something to be really proud of.
You carrying it to the bottom line?
Pardon me?
Carrying it to the bottom line? Cash flow?
Absolutely.
Very nice.
So, I mean, that's how you have to judge things. And so, we can sit here and look at, so you asked, I think it was you, it was going back to Thursday's a failure or something like that. When I could sit there and look at the fact that I could combine those the Thursday and the Monday show together and come up with, in any given week we had 300 to 500,000 additional people looking, more exposure to our brand than we've ever had before. It's obviously having an input on it's obviously having an effect on every revenue stream we have. Those are the things that talk to me most. How are you, Morgan?
Oh, very good. How are you?
I'm good. It's great to see you.
Great to see you, too. My question is, whose idea was it to get rid of the six-sided ring?
Well, the six-sided ring honestly started off as a gimmick. It was, when we were struggling so hard for some kind of an identity, we thought, well, what could get them to stop on the channel just long enough to question what it is? But the thought has been with us of late to try to get back into more traditional wrestling. We were trying to embrace the fact that we're proud to be a wrestling company and proud to be associated with wrestling, and quite honestly, all of our talent, all of them, I know people kind of bought into the whole marketing of the six-sided ring gives you more kind of moves, especially if you're an X Division wrestler. It's not true. But you guys in the back, I mean, they all learned how to wrestle in a four-sided ring. That's what they love. Our guys are more traditionalists. And we just felt like, hey, listen, if we're going to get back, if we're going to be the ones to step up and say, look, we're proud to be called a wrestling company. We're proud to be associated with wrestling. You know what? Let's be proud of the ring and just go back to it.
Wellness.
There's our friend Jason again.
Jason, so verbose this evening. What are your thoughts on drugs in wrestling, both recreational and performance enhancing? How is this managed in TNA now and in the future?
Well, I am proud to say that I am the only person in our industry who proactively went to Capitol Hill and met with Congress for a full day and was, you know, subjective to a very intense line of questioning. Jason, you ain't nothing compared to those guys. And, you know, really worked with them hand in hand to create a program for us that they felt, you know, they felt like they had input into it, and so we accepted that and worked with them and hired an outside company that they approved of to put a program in place for us. So, you know, that was a very important step for us. I myself, you know, I've never done drugs. I don't have, you know, I drug test myself, and I know it's the biggest waste of $350 to do it, but I feel like I have to set an example for everybody and expect other people to do what I do.
They're great.
The drug test?
No, drugs.
Oh.
Ah, you're
Sorry.
so silly. You're all so silly.
Sorry.
Samuel from the board at F4W Online, how do you feel about WWE's wellness policy testing for marijuana? And if you one day institute a policy, would you also test for marijuana?
Well, I don't want to comment on their policy, just ours, but we do test for marijuana as well, and there is repercussions for positive outcomes. And you would be positive, sir?
No, I said rub it down.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Aaron H., it's been reported that Kurt Angle was released by WWE for significant health issues that concerned WWE management. Before he was allowed to wrestle for TNA, how did you evaluate Kurt's health to determine it was safe for him to perform in the ring, for your company? Excuse me.
You know, when Kurt and I first spoke, he was such a broken man, and it was tough talking to him. You know, it was really hard listening to what he had gone through and where, you know, what he was coming out of. And I was, you know, I told him, I said in that first conversation, I said, you know, I would love to have you, and I think TNA would be a very good place for you to get your life back together and, you know, be surrounded by good people and be clean all the time and, you know, have people who care for you. But, you know, I'm very concerned at how broken you are, you know, and he had a lot of anger in him for what had happened. And I just said, look, in life you have two choices. You can blame the people who you perceive are the ones that put you in these situations, or you could take responsibility. At some point you could have said, no, sorry, not going to show up, not going to do this. So it was a big part of him kind of letting go. But to that specific question, you know, I talked to his manager, met with him in person several times, talked with the doctors. You know, we took it very, very, very seriously. And I have to say, he is an amazing man. I don't know how many of you have ever had the chance to meet him, but he's, you know, if I could have 1,000 Kurt Angles and, you know, for all my wrestlers who are still in the back, I mean, he's just somebody to strive to be. He doesn't know anything less than perfection in the ring. He's great behind the mic. He's a wonderful leader. He's just a really good man who works so hard and sets the bar so high. And it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Nice. Samuel from the board at F4W Online, why do you not care that Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and Pac goes on YouTube and post videos about taking somas and not being able to get into Canada because of gun charges?
Well, I would hope those were old stories, and knowing those guys, they love to sit around for hours at a time and talk to each other and anybody who will listen about their old stories. So poor YouTube has become a new home for these guys to increase the number of people who will listen to them. So you know what, again, not real crazy about it if you want to know the truth, but you know, those guys, most of our guys, you know, some of them have a history, but the fact is, it's how they are today. I'm proud to tell you, Scott Hall is doing great and is clean and is living a good life and is working very, very hard. And I mean, I take great pride in people who have struggles in their life being able to come and be a part of our company and come out better people in addition to anything else, more importantly than anything else.
Emulin?
Emulin.
Yeah, you want to take a shot at that? Because I'm flummoxed. Dixie, with all the precautions that WWE has taken recently with chair shots, blood, and extreme violence removed from programming, with these differences from the competitor's product now embraced in TNA, do you think that TNA wrestlers' health and well-being is in good hands or simply being exploited until something happens to change this? Okay, comparing WWE's chair shots to...
Well, I think those precautions were taken to become a PG product, and that's a business decision that I think, you know, is a good business decision for them. I don't think it was completely out of concern for the athletes as much as, you know, this is where we need to go, and the advertisers want us to go, and the toy makers want us to go. And
someone running for office?
Someone, yeah. So that was your outside voice. I heard that.
Damn it, I hate that.
But, you know, I think that, you know, we have been very blessed. Angelina's in the back with an arm injury, and we've been very blessed to have very few injuries with our talent, and most all of them, the most serious ones, have all just been the slightest fluke things. These guys are incredible professionals. When they say do not try this at home, there's a reason for it. These people know what they're doing.
Do you feel that in today's day and age, though, that there is added risk with having a non-PG product as a business owner, from a liability standpoint, with chair shots and blading and blood and
Well, I don't
stuff?
think blood and stuff like that. I mean, any movie, I mean, you can go on 7 o'clock programming on network these days and see more sexual innuendo or blood and guts and shoot 'em up than you do on our product any day of the week. But I think, you know, chair shots is something else. I mean, I think that's something that you know, there's still studies and work that needs to be done, but there's always, you know, you have to take concern when it comes to concussions.
WCW 2010, this chapter is called. We see where this is going. Matt Farmer from Wrestling Classics asks, do you realize your company is nearly a mirror image of early 2000 WCW, a company that lost millions of dollars and a regiment that killed a long-time tradition on a cable company? Actually, these are all like the same questions, so let's just knock these all out in one shot. James Sirigos, have you heard of the phrase, those who do not learn from history are destined to repeat it? Malti Kunz from Hanover, Germany. Are you aware what guys like Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Vince Russo, and Eric Bischoff did in WCW? How many members of TNA crew have come to you to tell you they've got a bad feeling about Hogan and Bischoff coming to TNA? Jason from Melbourne, Australia, hello again. Has Eric Bischoff offered to print advertising materials and reproduce entrance music for TNA for companies he's associated with? I refer to claims Mike Graham has made against Bischoff in WCW, siphoning money for his own personal gain via companies he's associated with. Mike Kinney, Dixie, from Hulk Hogan to Vince Russo. You have every one of the alleged all-stars that ran WCW into the ground. Hulk Hogan has even changed his physical ring style, the physical ring style of TNA's six-sided ring, a ring style that set TNA apart, and a ring style that TNA has had since day one. The way I see it, Hogan will continue to make changes such as cutting young talent, bring his friends in who are far past their prime. Don't you feel it's counterproductive to allow people to blatantly cause the demise of WCW to come into TNA and take over the booking and production? What makes you think they will suddenly have the magic wrestling formula they didn't have 10 years ago? Jason from Melbourne, Australia, do you have fears that Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff will go bankrupt for the company? Go. Take my pants off. Relax. Go ahead.
Am I supposed to go back and remember all of those? You know what? I don't think it's right for me to comment on WCW. I can tell you I know that there is a lot of misinformation out there of people who perceive things to be one way. And, you know, the questions that I do ask, I ask specifically as it relates to our company and things such as that. I will say I think one of the biggest problems that WCW had back then was a group of very selfish talent. You know, they were all wanting big raises, I mean, big contracts, and talking to each other about them, and then not showing up because they have a toenail and all this other stuff. And, you know, that was just one of the things that happened. But, you know, I'm trying to learn from that. And the guys we have now who were there, they're just in a different place in life. I mean, I look back and I see some tapes or interviews of these people that now work for me, and I don't even recognize them. I don't know these people. I think I go back and I look at some stuff on Vince Russo, and it's not even the same man that I know today. I know even Eric Bischoff, and you know, especially the Hulk Hogan and the Ric Flairs, and you know, we've always had WCW guys. I mean, when there are only two companies. You have two choices. You can have somebody that worked for one of those two or start from scratch. And starting from scratch to build a true superstar takes so many years. I mean, it takes the WWE 5 to 7 years to build one of their really, really big guys, and that's with all the resources in the world that we don't have. You know, so if you're a football team, what do? Go out and that guy looks big and he's going to play offensive lineman, or do you go and you go to the Eagles, or the Giants or whoever, excuse me, and you just you pull that talent. So you can't help that there are talent on our roster that have, if they're a superstar, they've been in one of those two places, and only one never went to the WWF, and that would be Sting.
So. He is pretty big, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
Ballerina. Samuel from the board at F4W Online. When Eric Bischoff was running WCW, he came out during the Monday Night Wars and challenged Vince McMahon to a fight. In 2010, can we expect you to come out on Impact and challenge Stephanie McMahon to a fight?
I don't think that's my style.
Matthew from 411 Mania, you stated several times that pay-per-view is not as important as the company's survival as many might think, that you are only fulfilling contractual obligations at this current time. Well, then when those contracts run out, and when they do you intend on moving beyond pay-per-view into a TV-only market plan?
Well, I think that pay-per-view is not what it used to be, for sure. And we've been lucky this year. We've had a couple of our biggest pay-per-views in our company history in 2010. But like I said before, it's a dying model, but it's also one I happen to make many millions of dollars on, cleared, at the end of the day. So until I can replace that income with something at least that or better, I'll continue to do it. But it's not where, I would put my sole focus where I might have if I was back in 2002.
Very good. Matt Farmer from Wrestling Classics. Is the Bischoff-Hogan regiment being held accountable for the falling television ratings and the horrible pay-per-view buy rates?
Well, we just discussed that we've had a couple of our highest pay-per-view buys ever since January, and that is reversing a trend of declining pay-per-view buys out there, and that goes for our competitor as well. So we're very happy with that. And as far as the falling television ratings, I think that the same shows in the United States on Mondays that got the ratings that they did were also, getting historic ratings over in the United Kingdom and in Australia and other places such as that. So where, the United States Monday did not work, those exact same shows are garnering tremendous ratings in other places around the world in their existing time slots.
Talent. And a video from the Silver Blazer.
Is he the one on the potty?
Oh, well, no, but I don't know if it's going to be much.
Hello, Sean Audible. This is the Silver Blazer again. Dixie Carter, I have a question for you on this YouShoot. Why, why did you disband Team Canada, the greatest team of all time? They would have ruled TNA with the Maple Leaf held proud and the hockey stick in one hand. Why did you get rid of Scott Bimbo, Robert Roode, A1, P.T. Williams, and Eric Young? They were the greatest team of all time. So, you know what I want to do? I'm gonna get my own Team Canada and come down to TNA and invade and show you what Canadian wrestling is.
A little...
Get out of my face, cameraman. The Silver Blazer has spoken.
Was that a Spanish accent?
You know what? I thought it was Montreal with the touch of South Boston. So,
what do you think, man?
I don't know.
Well,
Team Canada.
I don't think he really watches the show because last I checked, Robert Roode and Eric Young were on and doing quite well. But I think things run their course, and I think Team Canada had run their course, and I think Bobby Roode and Eric Young have really found their ways into some pretty exciting stuff. And I'm very proud of Beer Money. I think I'm a big tag team fan, and I think that's something that we do well, and I love what he's doing with Beer Money. I think Eric Young is a very, very talented person. The other ones are well. I've always been a big P.D. Williams fan, and I hope we see him back in TNA at some point in some capacity. But I'm sorry. I guess I'm just going to have to hire him, huh?
Yeah. Well, listen.
We're all in trouble now.
Pop those ratings. Another video, Rocky from Philly. There he is.
Hey, yo, Dixie, this is Rocky from Philadelphia. How's it going? It's been a long time no see. And thank you very much for using me on Impact. I had fun in my match against Mick Foley. That was pretty great. But I gotta ask you a question. I signed a lucrative deal, that big money deal that Kevin Nash was talking about. I never seen a dime. I never get no residuals, not my t-shirt check. What the fuck is up with that? How come you're not bringing back Rocky? I mean, you can bring me back anytime. Team 3D needs some help. I remember them in ECW. Why didn't you bring Rocky back? I'm a good man. Yo, I do the job for anybody. I did it for Mick Foley. Hey, Dixie, when you gonna bring me back?
Can I get a translator, please?
Do you remember whose idea it was at TNA to use the cardboard cutout of Rocky during the match with Mick? And did they tell you they saw it on our damn show? No. Oh, I got a witness?
It was Mick Foley, and I will have to ask him that question.
Well, Mick likes us, so we're not going to get mad at Mick.
Yeah, that was Mick's idea. Were you about to scream fire Russo because you thought he stole it from you?
No, I didn't think it was.
No, it was Mick Foley, and I have to tell you again, that's something that I have to, one reason I really like Vince is that the talent does have great input into a lot of the stuff that they do, and Mick is a brilliant guy, and he comes up with a lot of his own stuff.
Mad Metal, hi Dixie. For years I've heard many people, fans, and wrestling insiders claim wrestlers such as AJ Styles, Daniels, Motor City Machine Guns, etc. are the new blood of TNA, although many of these wrestlers were with TNA for years, some since the beginning, which was 8 long years ago. It seems like the TNA roster consists of talent we have seen for years, whether it's the veterans or the same TNA originals as always. It was great to see Desmond Wolfe debut in TNA. However, it seems like those moments are rare in total nonstop action wrestling. Do you believe or agree TNA should look for new faces more frequently from this day, whether it's X Division, knockouts, main event, to give it a fresh feel? Thanks.
Well, I think that the good news is those that he mentioned, the AJ Styles and all, they have just now, even though they've been around for a long time, I think are just starting to come into their own. But I'd say in the last 12 months, we've probably brought in more faces than we ever have. I mean, you look at, Generation Me and Brian Kendrick and the Pope and Mr. Anderson and Rob Terry and Magnus and, I could go on. I mean, we have a lot of new faces that have come to TNA, and I'm really excited about them. Okay,
Brawler 2711 from Wrestling Classics. Have any wrestlers ever hit on you, and if so, who?
You know what, this is a true story. One time in Houston, one of the visiting, maybe this is why we don't do World X Cup more, luchadors actually handed me his room key. I thought that was pretty ballsy.
I was going to say a high spot on the card just for the balls you showed, right?
Yeah. So that didn't go real well.
Non-traditional student from Wrestling Classics. Are the top names under guaranteed contracts, or do they have to produce to be paid?
You know what? We do a lot of different kind of contracts. We're not really guaranteed contract kind of company.
All right.
Not real healthy.
Aaron H. asks the age-old promoter's question. Do you think it's fair that your employees are not offered any kind of health insurance policy? Your company asks wrestlers to repeatedly risk their health and well-being for your product and your fans' enjoyment. However, these athletes are not offered even the health coverage that would be given to the janitors who clean up the studio after the show. Aaron's got a follow-up question which kind of answers her own question, which says, please explain why you consider TNA pro wrestlers to be independent contractors, not employees. As independent contractors, are your wrestlers free to wrestle at WWE events if the schedules do not conflict?
They can wrestle anywhere but WWE. I mean, they can go and wrestle in, AAA, or, some of ours wrestle in Ring of Honor. The only thing we can't do, and it's by contract, is they can't participate in a DVD that will be shown at mass retail. They can go and they can participate in an independent show that's, will show DVD as long as it's just selling on that. And that's my obligation to my DVD company, not our rule. But they are independent contractors, and we do have some form of a injury policy that we were able to get them, and it's something I would love to see change, but we'd have to change the whole ability for them to be employees, and everything would have to come through the company versus them have the ability and freedom to go out and do the things that they do now.
So if there was a formula that was proposed that worked, it's something you'd consider?
Yeah, absolutely I would. But then again, it would be us having to take control as employees versus them, like I said, going out and starting their own food line or doing this television show and that, and their lives would have to change as well. So it would be something we'd have to work out.
Sinbad from the board at F4W Online. Dixie, why did you air the speech of you talking down the locker room?
Talking down the locker room, like I was. Well, you know, I talk to the locker room all the time, and I think it was one of those. I'm not real crazy about being on camera, period. I mean, I love talking in front of you guys, and I could sit here all day and I just have to pretend like that camera's not there. But I'm not real fan of that. And I didn't want to be on that, but they felt like it was important. It was a time when we were trying to tell people that, you know what, change is good. And I've always told this to my employees. I tell this, I have a 3- and a 5-year-old. And, you know, I'm already starting to find ways to tell them. I mean, you don't just ever want to get comfortable in life, you know. I mean, change is scary for people, but that's where real great reward comes. And it was a very motivating speech. And, you know, all the guys afterwards, you know, were all high-fiving and were hugging, and they were all, you know, they felt one way about it. And then a group full of other people watched it and didn't get that same feel.
How do you convey that to a 3-year-old? I have a 4-year-old that doesn't listen to me. How do you get that to the 3-year-old in particular?
Yeah, we talk about a lot of stuff, like money and all kinds of stuff that we're trying to teach them early.
All right, I got to talk to her more about money, I guess. Samuel from the board at F4W Online. What are your feelings on Booker T and his departure from TNA?
I love Booker T, and I can't even say the word Booker T without saying Charmel in the same sentence. They are, you know, hand in glove. And two wonderful people. You know what? When he is on and he is motivated to work, you know, there's not very many that are as good as he is. But, you know, if he feels like he wants to get in that space again, then, you know, maybe we'll see him back.
All right. MKD, dear Dixie Carter, who is behind bringing in the Nasty Boys to TNA. Could you please fire him or her? Please? Pretty please? I'll buy you a cake if you do. Well, how long did they last, really? I mean...
Well, they were never hired. I mean, they were just brought in to do, you know, a couple of weeks, and they were just brought in on daily deals. And, you know, if I go back to the minute by minutes, I could have made the decision to keep them because they were usually in one of the highest rated segments, to be honest. But, you know, they were never brought in as long-term guys, but, you know, very good to be around and definitely team players.
Jay Zaretsky, Ontario, Canada. Who was it that told you that bringing in Jenna from Survivor and having her compete in wrestling matches was a good idea? Did anyone rightfully lose their job over it?
You know, Jenna wasn't brought in to wrestle. Jenna was brought in, she was doing a lot of publicity, and as a company who struggles with awareness, you know, she did a tremendous amount of interviews for us. She wrestled one time with Charmel, and it was more of a publicity stunt because she had something going on with Survivor, and it gave her an angle to talk about that got us a lot of exposure, and that was the only reason that did it. It was a very quick in and out, but that was the reason behind it.
Video from the Raw deal.
Yo, Holmes, wake up. You got a question for Dixie Carter.
What? You wake me up for this? Oh, I must have fallen asleep. It was the TNA pay-per-view. Hey, what's up, Dixie? Now, I understand you recently met with Jim Ross. Now, he intelligently declined your offer. Now, let me ask you this. Was that a ploy to throw Mike Tenay under the bus, or did Jim Ross tweet do that for you?
Is there anything you can talk about with your meeting with Jim Ross?
I mean, that's all hearsay, and if I did meet with Jim, I wouldn't tell a man on the couch who's bad-mouthing me.
What do you think of Mike Tenay? Here's an opportunity.
You know what? It's interesting because I think when we were new and you know, fresh out there and everything, you know, Mike Tenay was, you know, Pro Wrestling Illustrated. He was one of the top 1 or 2, you know, guys maybe right behind Jim Ross, voted by the fans, and you know, he has incredible knowledge and again a guy that works very, very hard for us. And I would never throw him under the bus.
Okay, works for me. Jason from Melbourne, wake up. Thoughts on the Honky Tonk Man and his comments about TNA and employees such as Hogan, Russo, Bischoff, and Bubba the Love Sponge, and the overall status of TNA?
Hadn't heard it, not interested.
Okay. Greg Pike, ever have talks with the Ultimate Warrior?
You know, I think he got his start with Jerry Jarrett back in the 80s, and I know Jerry had some conversations with him when they were first starting, but I don't think anything ever came of it, and I have not talked to him since.
You know, he changed his name to Warrior legally.
I know.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Prince, you know, they just...
Hot shit. Greg Pike, ever had talks with Goldberg?
I have, actually. I had breakfast with him one time at the Four Seasons north of San Diego, and it was I can't tell the whole story in here, but it was a very interesting breakfast. Good guy, very nice guy.
Okay. Brujo 2018, what are your future plans for the X division? Is it going just high flying like some wrestlers, or is it going to be a mix of high flying with great wrestling, or lucha like WCW cruiserweight division wrestlers, Guerrero, Mysterio, Benoit, Malenko, etc.?
Well, I think high flying with great wrestling is what most of those guys do. But you know, we've been talking a little bit about the time that we have on the show, and if we're trying to slow the pace and make things make more sense and build to pay-per-views and do all of the things that you all are saying, you know, we're going to have one X Division segment on the show, and the goal is to have one great X Division and not just a match that's thrown out there, but something that's going to have some substance and meat to it to really start to build these characters. And so I'm excited about it. I really believe in the X Division. I think everybody does. It's just one of those things when you have so much on such a little time to do it. It's difficult, but you know, we're going to make a big push for that.
All right. Anthony Militek, hi Dixie. First of all, let me say you're a very attractive woman, and I wish I had someone like you as a boss. I bet you get that said to you a lot. You are more beautiful than any of the beautiful people. Speaking of those lovely knockouts, whose idea was the beautiful people? They're one of the few reasons I watch TNA. Anthony's breathing heavy at home.
He needs to get his eyes checked.
Yes.
No, you know, that was pretty easy. You guys just saw Angelina Levin here a few minutes ago, and you know, with her and Velvet and some of this kind of BFF and, you know, the beautiful kind of comments they started saying, it just happened very organically. Creative came up with it, and I think it's been, you know, it's perfect for them.
Van Boxmeer from the board at F4W Online. Why is the focus of the knockout shifting from being the anti-diva, legitimate athletes and wrestlers, to becoming beautiful people, show tits and ass, sex-selling objects that you previously were vehemently opposed to? You were opposed to.
Yeah. I think if they were showing tits and ass and selling sex-selling objects, I would still be vehemently opposed to that. You know, our girls, I would put them against anybody in the business. I don't think anybody can hold a candle to how our girls wrestle, and you know, I'm very, very proud of that division.
Jason from Melbourne, was the Bubba the Love Sponge Awesome Kong situation handled poorly? Was it fair to keep him out off TV whilst this was happening? She's probably one of the best workers on the roster.
She's been on TV since then. You know, that wasn't the reason, but it was very difficult with her being Kong's tag team partner and holding the championship belt at the time. You know, I don't think it was handled poorly. I think it was actually handled very well. There's a lot of stuff I can't discuss in here, but if you had all the facts, I think everybody in here would agree that it was done exactly by the book, and anybody who has, you know, an obligation to a company and would have done the same thing.
Potpourri. Alex Robinson from the board at F4W Online. What are your thoughts on the wrestling newsletters?
Wrestling websites, newsletters, blogs. I think anything that anybody who's passionate about wrestling is good in my book. You know, whether they like TNA, hate TNA, it doesn't matter. They like wrestling, and I think it's important. And you know, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to get out there and, you know, really continue to spread the word of wrestling and make people, you know, more aware of how great it is.
Do they have influence, the dirt sheets?
No.
Okay. Samuel from the board at F4W Online. What are your feelings on Brian Alvarez? Who?
I don't know him.
There you go. Well, okay, then here's a follow-up. Aaron H., please respond to this quote from wrestling reporter Brian Alvarez from March 11th. TNA has been the biggest failure of this generation. The story of TNA is a story of a group of people who never learn a thing. They never learn a thing from their failures, and more astoundingly, they never learn a thing from their few successes. They're run by a woman who has no idea what she's doing, and the TV has been written for years by a guy who has no idea what he's doing. It's the classic story of doing the same thing over and over again and hoping somehow things will change. That's Brian Alvarez.
I don't know him. You know, I think to be a company that's making the kind of money that we're making and doing it with integrity and professionalism and being kind to our wrestlers and loving our fans and having success, I don't call that a failure.
All right. Noel Medina, the Wrestling Observer newsletter website ran a poll about what TNA's biggest problem is. Can you comment on the results of the poll? You have the JPEG up?
You have it right.
I hear the crank on the computer. This is what the JPEG will say, and all you in the audience can see it. The top of the list, 30% said bad storylines, lack of consistency. Oh, we each have one. Oh. Nice. Bad storylines, lack of consistency, 30%. 20% said feels too much like WCW and thus comes off like a failure. 12% said bad management. 10% said too much reliance on older wrestlers. No vision was 8%. No ability to connect with fan base was 5%. Inability to make stars 3%. Not enough wrestling on the TV show 2%. Too many angles 2%. Bad pacing. Now, you don't have to respond to all of it, but is there any of it that you would agree with or something that maybe you identified also and got under the hood and had to fix in the last couple of years?
Well, I think we've talked a little bit today about more focus on the show and slowing down the pacing and not doing as many angles and things such as that. You know, no ability to connect with the fan base. I think we have the most passionate fan base in all of wrestling, and that's something I'm proud of. If you come to the shows, you know, you're encouraged not to sit down and to participate in the show and to stand up, and you know, it's a party and we embrace them, and so I think we very much connect to the fans. And I think, you know, there's been at times when we've been lack of consistency, you know, but I think today, you know, I'm proud of where we're at, and I think again that some of the stuff I can go in here about the older wrestlers and things such as that, again, the minute by minutes tell me that those people still deliver the highest ratings on the show, and so, you know, we're using them to help establish the younger guys who, when they're in segments by themselves, don't do that, and that's probably the best way of doing it.
Okay. Mike Campbell has a very important question, something you have to straighten out in the world of wrestling. There's a fellow here in Syracuse, New York, who claims to be a wrestler named Killer Koala, and also claims to work for TNA. He always goes to the house shows, indie shows, and pay-per-views at Hooters in a TNA shirt, telling anyone that will listen he works for TNA, and name drops you in particular. Is this guy a legit TNA employee?
Not the last time I checked our payroll.
Okay.
Anybody else know him? No? Okay.
Richard Berger from the Wrestling Classics, would you be willing to sit and watch a couple of Dragon's Gate USA discs with an open mind?
You know, I don't know what he's asking in particular, but I think not only do we watch a lot of tapes, not only from them, but others around the world, we actually send people to shows. I go to competitive shows, and I think it's a way of paying your respects to other people in our industry, as well as just, you know, seeing what they're doing and seeing their talent.
Greg Pike, ever meet Vince McMahon?
I have not.
The Assassin, what is your response to Vince McMahon calling TNA tawdry? Here's the quote, you said it before. We're in different businesses.
We're in the entertainment business. They're in the pro wrestling business. It's different markets. When they moved to Monday nights, they threw the kitchen sink at us and only did a fraction of our audience. It doesn't speak well for the type of product they're trying to present with the tawdry, blood-soaked action. I don't think that's what the culture wants these days.
Well, my response, my flippant response was, you know, to be called tawdry from the king of tawdry, I take that as a compliment. But the reality is that, you know, his wife is in an election year, and, you know, they have changed their format for their show, and, you know, he has the public forums to stand up and throw off the perception that he has owned for so many years and try to put it to us. So that's all that he was doing.
The king of tawdry,
there you go.
She says. YouShoot Live next. Vince McMahon. Stay tuned. I never do it. He doesn't have the balls, but you did. And I thank you
Absolutely.
for being so candid and answering everything.
I've had fun, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Dixie Carter. And thanks for shooting.